Welcome back to our homeschooling series. We're glad to have you. I'm Debbie Jansen and
I'm Amy Williams.
And we're glad to be with you today. You can go in the comments section and leave us a question if you want to ask a question about homeschooling, or you can go to debbiejansen.com and go to the contact page and leave a question there, and we'll try to answer as many as we can. I hope you've been following us in the last few videos. We've enjoyed hearing from you. And today, Amy, we're going to start with a question that I don't know the answer to. If you start homeschooling and decide you just can't do it, can you switch back to regular school?
Yes, you can.
Is that a big process?
No. So in Ohio, or at least around here, if you decide that you can't do it, you just contact the school and say, it would be like registering your child again.
Oh,
so you
okay.
just re-enroll. It's the same as when you move.
Oh, okay.
When you move
okay.
and you go to the district, then you register your kid and say, I'd like to bring them. It's the same thing. So if you decide that homeschooling is not for you, you just call the school and say, I would like for them to come back.
Okay.
Or I have known of people who circumstances change in their life. Family member gets sick or something happens and they can't do homeschooling, and so they just re-enroll their kids and send them back to school.
Okay. And one of the things you've said a lot is you keep saying in Ohio, which is where we are. So let's just clarify that every state has different rules for how homeschooling is done?
Yes. So you're going to want to go to the website for the state. So there's usually an education website for your state, and I would say that's where you would start. For all the requirements for your state, for all the homeschooling requirements, what you have to turn in. Like in Ohio, I have to commit to 900 hours within a school year of teaching that I will do. So each state will outline that on the education website.
Okay. Now, this may be in our question, so I'll try to weed it out if it's later on in the question. But you have always amazed me because when you were teaching VIP kids, you would get up at, 5 in the morning?
My first class was at 5 a.m.
That would be hard for me, but just that one thing. But you would teach the kids for VIP kids. Then you would take a break and have breakfast with your kids. Then you would teach your kids, do the homeschooling, and by 1 o'clock, you're finished. Now, how do you do all of that with your kids, but a public school has to have from 8 o'clock to 3:34?
So I talked earlier in our conversation about transitions. So when we're homeschooling, we don't have to make those transitions. So,
and explain transitions again.
Transitions is okay, there's 30 kids in my class. So, all right, we finished our math. So everybody put your books away. We're going to take a bathroom break. And so all 30 kids have to stand up and all 30 kids walk down the hallway and you go to the bathroom and then you stand in the hallway and you wait for everyone else to get finished. And then we walk back to our classroom and everybody has to get settled and get the next book.
So that's a 20-minute process.
That's a transition right there. So that's 20 minutes out of your day.
Yeah.
On a good day.
On a good day.
Just of going to the bathroom. Well, then you have transition to go to art class. Then you have transition to go to different classes. Then you also have 30 kids in your class. So when you're doing, I would typically teach a lesson and then say, okay, now give them an assignment to do. Well, you want to give them enough time for everyone to finish the assignment. So the kid who's got it and is on top of it and is rolling through his assignment, he'll get done in a few minutes,
Yeah.
There's other kids, though, that may need longer to finish that assignment or may need some extra teaching. So the kid who sped through and got everything done, now he's sitting in his chair reading a book because he's waiting on the rest of the class to finish.
So it's not actually that they're teaching more. It's that you may be teaching the exact same amount, but you're not wasting time on all the transitions or the waiting.
Right.
Okay.
So we are able to cut down on our school day because there's extra things that we don't have to wait for or to do.
Okay.
So we can just roll through our different subjects.
And that's kind of nice, isn't it?
It is very nice.
What are the alternatives to public school?
So there's a few of them out there. As opposed to public school, there's great Christian schools that are around. There are charter schools that are around. You just have to look in your area to see what's available. And there's also online schools. Most of the online schools that I know of are still considered public school. You're just choosing to do it at home.
I'm trying to think. There's one called Abeka or...
Abeka is a curriculum, a Christian curriculum. It's in Ohio, it's Odella.
Odella, okay. And they're specifically an online all day long.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And then there's also another one that I know of that's K-12.
Yeah, K-12, maybe that's what I was thinking of, because I've seen commercials for that.
Yeah.
But then you're sitting your kid in front of a computer for however many hours a day.
Right.
And I want to...
COVID, honestly, kind of put a spotlight on the online education, because that's what we did during COVID.
Yeah.
So a lot of the schools, they transitioned to online teaching. So the teacher is in one room, the kids are at home in their room, and everybody has to sign in, and the teacher teaches the lesson.
But I'm not sure that that's really good for kids to be stuck at a computer all day long.
So I would say it maybe depends on their age. And again, it goes back to knowing your student well, knowing your child well. Yeah. Like, is that an environment where they're going to be able to stay on task and they're going to be able to stay focused? And
again, their age.
Right. And their age.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it's a little bit harder to get a 5-year-old to sit in front of a computer all day. When I was teaching with VIP Kid online, the 5-year-olds were a whole lot of energy and a whole lot of fun, but it was difficult to keep them engaged.
Yeah, yeah. And there's certain things I'm thinking about, like how do you teach writing, or how do you look at a kid's paper or whatever.
Yeah,
because
there's different ways of doing it when you're online teaching. So it is possible, but usually the younger they are, there is an adult somewhere in the room who's kind of monitoring and helping with that kind of stuff.
Well, okay, here's one that's a biggie. What are the physical supplies and the space that a parent is going to need to do this? I mean, do you have to have a big, huge room that you dedicate to it, or can you do it in a camper or in the backyard? Give us some tips on how you would start planning your area.
Sure. That is a great question, and it's one that a lot of people ask. And I would say, no, you do not have to have a designated, like, homeschool room per se. You can if you want to. You can absolutely do that. And I can tell you our transition has been from a homeschool room to absolutely not a homeschool room. And it's just kind of finding what's working best for you and your kids and your family at the time. Yeah. So when we started out, I, being a teacher, couldn't help myself. We created a room in our house, and I had a bulletin board, and we had letters on the wall, and it was all decorated, and we had all of our stuff and bins, and we had it all. And
you had a miniature schoolroom.
We did. And it was great. And our first year was great, and we used it. But then the next year, we kind of used it, and then we found the opportunities, so we went on the road. So Grandma was sick, and we wanted to make sure that we got to see her before she passed. So we packed up all of our school stuff, and we went to Iowa with it, and we still did school every single day, and we still did all of our subjects, but we were in Iowa doing it. And in fact, one day we were sitting in Aunt Lois's camper, and everybody else was outside, and I said, well, we need a place to do school. And so we went inside and sat in the camper, and we did our schoolwork, and then we went outside and played. So that is one of the nice things about homeschooling, is that it can be transportable.
Yeah.
So I am pretty strict about my schedule, in that it has to be every day from these hours, but it doesn't have to be in the same location.
That was what was so amazing when Ron and I were recovering from COVID, and you came over to help, and you brought the girls, and you guys just set up on my dining room table, and you were able to get them started on something and run upstairs and make sure I was okay and make sure your dad was okay, and then come back down and, okay, we'll go back to teaching again. And it was amazing to watch you just kind of melt that all around what needed to be done.
Yep. And we did that when I had foot surgery. So I was reclined back in a recliner with my foot in a cast for months. And the girls just pulled up a tray table next to me, and I drew on a dry erase board whatever I needed to teach them or whatever we needed to work on, and then they sat right next to me and they did their schoolwork. So, I mean, throughout our, 6 years of homeschooling, it has, every year I feel like it's kind of transitioned to something different. And we ended up, last year we were at the kitchen table almost the whole year, so half my kitchen table most of the time was all school books, and we just left it that way. And then towards the end of the year, I bought this amazing thing. It's called a rolling cart, which anybody in education knows what it is, but for us it was great because then I reclaimed my kitchen table. And so we have this rolling cart now that everything goes, we do our subjects and it goes back on the rolling cart, and it sits in our dining room. So it's right there at our kitchen table, but our stuff is out of the way. And so we've transitioned from a full-on schoolroom to a rolling cart.
Well, we're going to mention some supplies as we go through different things here. And so when we do, be sure and check either on my website or here in the comments section.
Description.
The description section, and we'll give you some links to find what Amy's talking about.
Yeah, so we'll definitely put a link to the rolling cart in the description because it has been great for us, and it gives space for all the things that we need, but we cannot take over the dining room.
What if somebody's sitting down doing a budget? Okay, how much do I need to budget for crayons, for paper, do you figure that out for a year at a time, or do you just kind of buy what you need for the next couple of weeks and then see how it goes?
Yes. So I usually sit down with my curriculum and figure out what we need to get started and what we have to start out our school year with. And then I usually would keep a couple of weeks ahead. And so I would just look at whatever crafts we're doing or whatever we're working on and just make sure that I have all those supplies as we go on. And that's the nice thing. You don't have a big, beginning of the school year, supply list that you're not sure if they use.
Yeah, because it just kind of goes into a closet most of the time.
So, I just buy it as we go. As I see we need it, then I will pick it up.
Well, the other thing that makes homeschooling a little bit cheaper, I know you have to buy your curriculum, and we're going to talk about that later, but you don't have to buy all kinds of clothes.
No.
I remember going to your house one time, and you guys were all sitting around working hard in your jammies, and I said, you guys okay? Oh, we just felt like having a jammy day. Mm-hmm. And it was phenomenal because you guys were having fun, but you were getting your work done.
Right.
And there's no gas to transport the kids to school.
Right. And the other nice thing is that if one of my kids was sick, but the other one is feeling okay, we still do school. So the one lays on the couch not feeling good, and okay, I can understand that, but the other one still does school.
Yeah.
And sometimes, they may not feel very good in the morning, so they're allowed to rest. And then in the afternoon, hey, you're feeling good, so now we're going to do our schoolwork.
That's amazing. That's phenomenal.
And the really funny part about homeschooling, and that my kids don't find so funny, is that we live in Ohio where we get snow, and we don't take snow days.
Oh, Mom, you're so mean.
Yeah. So all the other kids get snow days, and I remember the first time we went to church, and I help out in our kids program, and they were in the big room, and the leader said, "So, how many of you guys had a snow day this year?" And the kids all raised their hand, and my kids go, "What? Wait a minute, Mom!" Because we don't take snow days because we don't have to.
Yeah.
So, but the nice thing about that is we don't take snow days, so we get done earlier sometimes because we don't have to factor that into our school year.
That's neat. Okay, this kind of plays into it. What kind of daily time does homeschooling take? And we've talked before about the transitions and that type of stuff. But can a parent slice it up, change it around? So like if both parents are working, or if one parent is working part-time, could she schedule it or he schedule it so that they could do the homeschooling when they were off?
So I have heard of families who do that, where like mom works part-time 2 days and dad works part-time, or dad is working from home some of those days. And so I've heard of families that do it that way, where some days mom teaches and some days dad teaches, and they work it around their work schedule. So it is possible. I would say my big thing is that I like consistency. So my kids are very consistent, like Monday through Thursday is our school days. And then Fridays are our science experiments or all the extra things. So we do art projects on Fridays and we do the extra things on Fridays. But Monday through Thursday, we are doing school. And they know in the morning they get up and they eat their breakfast and they do their chores and they change clothes. And at a certain time, they have to be at the table for school.
Well, that's good emotionally too, because then they kind of get their mindset, okay, come 9 o'clock, I have to be ready and go to school, which is much like kids that are going to public school.
Sure.
So here's my time to learn, and I know that your brain prepares you for those kind of times.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, we've taken times where we've adjusted that schedule, but we still have a schedule, and the kids know ahead of time, like, hey, it might look a little bit different, but we still have to get all these subjects done.
And so even if grandma needs to keep the kids from early morning till 1 o'clock, mom could come home and say, okay, at 2:30 we're going to start school, and do their schoolwork that way.
Yeah,
and then grandma could also help
Grandma
out.
can help with
the next day with kind of completing homework or whatever.
And I do know, I don't know all the logistics of how it works, but I did meet a grandma who was homeschooling her granddaughter. Mom had to work, and so grandma took it on to homeschool. So
that's
kudos to grandma.
Yeah, kudos to grandma. Well, I know I love having them come over for piano lessons, and Jamie's teaching them some artwork, and I'm going to teach them how to do cake decorating. And is there an excitement in homeschooling about the fact that the whole world is kind of opened up to you?
Absolutely. Well, the whole world is our classroom. So, like, if we are learning about, I don't know, well, we did a study on poison ivy, because we were outside and I wanted the girls to know what poison ivy was. So instead of showing them a picture of this is what poison ivy is, we went outside and we found it. Like, okay, outside you go. This is poison ivy and this is what it looks like, so don't get into it.
And then I think one of them did, didn't they?
Oh, yes. But it's great because we have all of that at our fingertips, and we have the ability to go outside if we want to, or we go on a nature walk, or we, go see things because we're done with our school day. And I would say, you asked about the time frame and how long it takes. I would say, when kids are younger, it doesn't take as much time to get the actual schoolwork done.
Yeah.
And there's lots of ways to homeschool. So that is sticking to the schedule and just doing it that way is just the way that I like to do things. But there are all kinds of philosophies of homeschool. So there's a thing called unschooling. There's just different curriculums. So it's really what will work best with your family, and knowing your kids well enough to know what is going to work best for them.
Okay. And one last thing on this before we go is that it allows you to do what you think is important. So what I'm asking you this question is, once you get down the basics, okay, so if you have your reading class and you have your writing class and you do some science and you do some math and you get the basics down, then if you want to, you can take an hour, if the parent is excited about health, or excited about, like you said, Sophie was, about space, or about doing the experiments on Friday. I think I'm going to have to find out what kind of experiment you do. That sounds cool. But if you have different interests, or if you're a Christian and you want to study the Bible, or if you want to get them into, recently you had them in a running class so that they could learn how much they could do in running and what the benefits were for that.
Right.
And you used to be a runner until you hurt your foot.
Right.
And so you can take what's important to you and add it on to the curriculum after they've learned the basics. Is that right?
Yes. Yes. And I will say the basics will get longer the older they get. So the younger they are, it's not as much time that you're spending doing the basics. And as they grow up, those things will take a little bit longer. So depending on where you're starting with your student, depends on how much time it's going to take. But I will say we are going into 5th grade this year, and we're not spending as much time in the day as the kids in our neighborhood are usually gone.
Yeah, that's cool. That's really cool. Well, I have enjoyed this discussion this time, and I can't wait to find out some more. I've got plenty more questions to ask you, and next time we're specifically going to be talking about how to prepare for success in homeschooling, and I think that's going to be really interesting. And I love the way that we are learning to just kind of go with the flow, because that's what happens in homeschooling. We're having these talks at my house, and the kids are outside playing, and hopefully Grandpa is watching them. But every once in a while, I'm sure you hear this ding, ding when they come in the door. But I love that we can be relaxed in homeschooling, and certainly in this series, we are going to be relaxed and have some fun while we get the information we need. So that's great. So join us again next time. This is Debbie Jansen
and Amy Williams,
and we're talking about homeschooling. See you next time. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Bye-bye now.